Hey, welcome and welcome back to the Stash. Being a reader of Spider-Man comics the last few decades have been pretty depressing. I mean, if you're familiar with my channel, then you know I've been covering every single release of Zeb Wells' The Amazing Spider-Man series. And I just gotta say, it is rough to try to get through that book every fortnight. It is incredibly difficult. But before Wells, there was a man named Nick Spencer. He went against Marvel's interests and was slowly fixing the years and years of damage that had been done to the Amazing Spider-Man comic book. His real first big step in doing so was retconning the infamous Sins Past storyline, but my god, what were they thinking with this one? But he wasn't just done there. His main goal was clear in sight and not that far away. The goal of Peter and Mary Jane Watson being together once more. But unfortunately for him and all our Spidey fans, he left the book and then Zeb Wells came in and undid everything Spencer had been working on for over a year or two. This resulted in a lot of backlash from the fans, and to this day things have only gotten worse. However, we have one saving grace. January of 2024, Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1 featuring Peter and Mary Jane married again with a family was released to the adoring public. Now let me tell you, I was one of those who just pre-ordered it several months early. Like as soon as I heard about it, I went to my store and I said, I need to get this book on lockdown. Fast forward to the present day and issue 3 is finally out now, and just, man, this series, it's so special. It is really good. But before we get into that, I wanted to thank you all for the crazy support on the channel recently. It's been immense, and I'm honestly still just processing all the love and support I've been getting. I can't thank you all enough. It really means the world to me. Also, if you are new around here, and you like Spidey or just comics in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. And just one last thing, we also have a channel membership for a small price. It comes with a bunch of cool little perks, and it's there for anyone who would like to go that extra step in supporting the channel. Anyway, I'd say it's about time we get back to the video. So just in case you've missed the previous videos, lucky for you there is a playlist, I'll go over a quick recap. 20 years ago, the Maker prevented a radioactive spider from biting a young Peter Parker. He likewise prevented the creation of any other superheroes and formed a secret council to rule the world from the shadows. 2 months ago, Peter Parker, now a married father of 2, allowed a radioactive spider to bite him after Tony Stark sent Peter a picotech suit, the spider, and warnings of the Maker's Council. Since then, Peter has used his new, incredible abilities to pursue the truth of the world, while his uncle Ben Parker pursues it through investigative journalism after leaving the corrupt Daily Bugle owned by Wilson Fisk. The one hitch in Peter's journey so far as Spider-Man? His daughter May Parker has discovered his secret identity. Now with that out of the way, our story begins with Mary Jane and Richard suspecting Pete and May are hiding something, but they're able to cool it off and play it off as a joke. It's a great little scene because even in those 2 pages, we see how Richard and Peter have the same sort of expressions, with them both using the line, I read that in a book once, as well as it just overall being a nice family moment the main Spider-Man title so desperately needs. Once MJ and Richard leave, Pete and May get straight to designing his new costume. Now one other thing I really like about this book is the way that time essentially is moving with us in real life. Issue 1 was set and released in January, Issue 2 was set and released in February, and as you can guess, now Issue 3 is set and released in March. Also, in a way, it sort of gives it that old classic Silver Age feeling, how every book was released monthly, and the time would move along with us as well back then. But it also makes me sort of cope better with the fact that this book isn't being released every 2 weeks and has to be stuck at monthly, because I really wish that ASM got shifted to being a monthly release and this got boosted forward. It's just so much better than the main title. But anyway, we're treated to several interesting costume designs, and I really like this more spectacular Spider-Man black suit thing they had going on here, but it's still a little too scary for a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That is until they hit the jackpot and create the perfect red and blue suit. Now this panel is beautiful, and it is so good to finally see this costume actually inside of the book instead of just it being on the front covers. It's such a great blend of all the previous classic suit designs over the year. It's just mixed into this one beautiful costume. Elsewhere at Ben and Jonah's new office, we see them talk shop until Peter drops by for a visit with flowers that MJ had picked up earlier with Richard. Peter notices a board in the background that is all about the recent events involving Wilson Fisk as of late. Peter inquires about it, but it is shut down as he technically works for the enemy. Lucky for him though, Jameson suggests a quid pro quo sort of situation, and of course Peter agrees. Through this we learn that Fisk has been trying to kill any sort of story about the recent targeted attacks by the Green Goblin within the Bugle. Instead, they're pushing stories about the guy in the black suit, which I get. He's extremely photogenic and to me seems to be a much more compelling and, dare I say, charming character. A real man of the people. Just an opinion. After they finish talking business, Spidey then goes on his first ever stakeout. It takes a couple of days, but his patience eventually pays off as soon as he's about to leave. Flying through the air, fighting each other for their lives, is the Green Goblin and a new face among the emerging characters of this world. It's none other than Bullseye, the man who can turn anything into a deadly weapon. Now the artwork here is just so good, and it's like finding water in the middle of the desert after reading so much of the Amazing Spider-Man.
What the f is this piece of shit?
We finally get to see Spidey in action with his brand new suit, and Bullseye causes a crane to fall on him, leaving him to believe he's out for the count, but little does he realize that he's just set up his own trap. As he's about to deal the killing blow to the Green Goblin, Spider-Man lands one of the most coolest strikes, knocking Bullseye out cold. You see, this is how you write Spider-Man. He's one of the strongest heroes in Marvel Comics, and he shouldn't just get beaten half to death by someone like Tombstone or the Vulture. It just feels so good to finally be able to read a Spidey who's actually able to win a fight, and this guy has only been Spider-Man for like a few months, at most. Plus, he only lost the Shocker through him just not being used to the role and being extremely gullible, but to make Bullseye your first villain that you've properly taken down is an incredible feat, and it's something that the current Spidey and ASM could never do in a million years. Now, I actually thought that this next part was quite interesting. The Green Goblin is able to basically hack into Peter's suit, I believe, and deactivate his mask, revealing his identity. Then with a sign of trust from the Green Goblin, he removes his helmet and then reveals that he is also Harry Osborn. Now, obviously, this was heavily hinted at in the first issue, especially when he was giving that speech, and then everything just sort of went dark around him, and he looked really cynical, but, I mean, it was an expected sort of plot twist, but I'm not really complaining here. He offers Peter a drink, which he accepts, and thus the friendship of Peter and Harry Osborn has now officially begun. God, I love this series. Every issue so far has managed to just exceed my expectations, and it just leaves me wanting more and more after each release. The artwork is incredible, and the way that this artist is, I don't want to butcher his name, is able to just draw more slow, dramatic, and thoughtful panels for the more quieter character building moments, and then just switch to these insane levels of action that just pulls you into the story, and it just does wonders for the comic book. The storytelling in this is also incredible. I love it. Jonathan Hickman is doing such a good job with the series. I love the direction he's taken with Peter becoming Spider-Man later on in his life and mixing that with his family and May knowing, and he wants to eventually tell MJ and Richard. It's just so good. And Peter in this book is basically just a complete amateur, yet I love it so much because it's not the super annoying make yourself look like a loser even though you should be more skilled thing that just goes into the main title of Spider-Man. It's the more realistic, hey, you've only been doing this for like 3 months sort of thing. Plus the panels with Peter, Ben, and Jonah have to be some of my favorite moments in this issue. You get this, I don't know, like newsman vibe from all three of them. Like Peter might be an amateur web slinger, but he's definitely an adult, and that's something that ASM struggles with in terms of him actually acting like his age. I also found it really interesting how the Green Goblin and Spider-Man's first meeting has them pretty much instantly bond. I mean, it makes sense considering that we know their real history together, but I just like the way it's played out here, and I wonder like if Hickman was going to go the route of Green Goblin eventually just going on a downward spiral and becoming the more classic evil Green Goblin. It wouldn't be surprising to me. I sort of hope for maybe that they don't go that route and sort of keep going with this friendship of them both being heroes. However, I still have full trust. Even if Hickman goes the opposite route with that, I still think he's going to pull it off and it'll be amazing. I don't know, there's something about this issue in particular that's probably just, it makes it my favorite out of the three. I'm not sure if it's whether he just gets his classic suit finally and it just feels like we've moved forward even more within the story, which makes sense. But just the Peter and May bonding moments as well in this are just so good. It's really special and it's just so wholesome to read, especially just their classic father-daughter time making up a Spider-Man costume. It's crazy how, like, issue 1 is already on its 5th printing, issue 2 is already on multiple printings. I'm pretty sure this issue that just came out has already been announced for a second printing, and issue 4, I believe, is going to have some amazing J. Scott Campbell variant covers, which I am dying to get my hands on. I have I have the notifications, like, ready just for when it goes up, because they look so good. It's a playful, like a playful remake of his original trilogy of covers that he did way back when in ASM, but just obviously with now the theme of Peter and Mary Jane being married with a family, and they just, again, they look amazing. Like I mentioned before, the action in this is incredible, just straight from the get-go with Green Goblin and Bullseye chasing each other, and their fight was so, like, fun to read. Bullseye throwing the cards, Goblin trying to throw his pumpkin bombs, then when Spidey joins in the fight and obviously wins the entire fight by knocking out Bullseye with one punch, this Peter Parker just, he does everything that the main ASM Peter should be doing. He's a married man with a family. He has an actual quality. He spends quality time with his family. He has a life as Peter Parker. He's able to take down villains easily. He doesn't get beaten half to death by the Vulture or Tombstone. This one actually beats his villains with one single hit.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
This is everything we've been asking for in a Spider-Man comic. I'm so happy it's finally here and I actually have something to look forward to when I go to my local comic book store. I encourage, like, any Spidey fan or just a comic fan in general to pick up this book today and read it for yourself. You won't be disappointed. And although it's not the main title, it looks like our hero is finally back. And I, for one, am extremely grateful for Ultimate Spider-Man.